The night was cold on New Busan. The wind came down from the mountains and moved through the streets like a living thing. It found every crack in every wall. It found every person who did not have a warm place to sleep. Tella stood outside the diner with her two daughters. She held their small hands in hers. The girls were twins, 7 years old, with violet skin and thin antennae that grew from their foreheads. Their names were Nira and Sola. They had not eaten in 2 days. Tella was a Veltari, a species from a world far away. Her people had soft purple skin and 4 fingers on each hand. They had 2 hearts inside their chests. They could see colors that humans could not see. But none of that mattered now. What mattered was that her children were hungry and she had only 50 cents in her pocket. She looked through the window of the diner. Inside, she could see warm light. She could see people sitting at tables, eating food, talking and laughing. The smell of cooking meat and hot soup came through the door. It made her stomach hurt with wanting. The sign above the door said, Grandma Yoon's Diner. Below that, a smaller sign said, All species welcome. Tella had heard stories about humans. Everyone in the galaxy had heard stories. Humans were strange creatures. They were soft and weak compared to many species. They lived short lives. They could not see in the dark. They could not breathe underwater. They had no claws, no armor, no venom. But somehow humans had spread across the stars. They had built colonies on 100 worlds. They had fought wars against species much stronger than themselves, and they had won. Some people said humans were kind and generous. Other people said humans were dangerous and should be feared. Most people said both things were true. Tella did not know what to believe. She only knew that she was far from home, alone with her children, and she had 50 cents. 1 year ago, her life had been different. She had lived on Velthar Prime with her husband and her daughters. They had a small house with a garden. Her husband worked as a teacher. Tella made clothes and sold them at the market. They were not rich, but they were happy. Then the war came. The Dominion invaded Velthar Prime. They came with ships that blocked out the sun. They came with soldiers in black armor. They burned cities. They killed anyone who tried to fight back. Tella's husband joined the resistance. 3 weeks later, he was dead. Tella took her daughters and ran. She ran for months. She hid in cargo ships. She begged for food. She crossed borders that were supposed to be closed. Finally, she reached New Busan, a human colony world on the edge of human space. She thought she would be safe here. She thought she could start again. But starting again cost money, and money was something she did not have. Now she stood outside a diner with 50 cents and 2 hungry children. Mama, Nira said. Her voice was very small. I'm so hungry. I know, little one. Tella squeezed her daughter's hand. I know. Can we go inside? Sola asked. It looks warm inside. Tella looked at the diner again. She knew that 50 cents would not buy anything. She knew she would probably have to leave without ordering, but her daughters were cold and inside was warm. Maybe she could ask for water. Maybe they could sit for a few minutes and get warm before going back out into the night. She pushed open the door. The diner was not very big. There were maybe 10 tables and booths along the walls with red seats. The floor was clean. The lights were bright but not harsh. On the walls there were pictures of food and old photographs of people smiling. When Tella walked in, everyone looked at her. She felt their eyes. Human eyes. Some curious. Some surprised. A few unfriendly. Tella pulled her daughters closer. She wanted to turn around and leave, but her feet would not move. Then an old woman appeared in front of her. The woman was human, with gray hair pulled back from her face and deep lines around her eyes. But the lines were the kind that came from smiling, not from frowning. She wore an apron over her clothes and a small tag on her chest said her name was Yoon Bora. Hello there, the old woman said. Her voice was warm. Table for 3? Tella was so surprised that she could not speak. She had expected questions. She had expected suspicion. She had not expected a simple welcome. She nodded. Grandma Bora led them to a booth in the corner of the diner. It was a good spot away from the other customers, with a window that looked out at the street. The seats were soft and the table was clean. Here you go, Grandma Bora said. She placed 3 menus on the table. Take your time. I'll be back in a few minutes to take your order. Then she walked away as if there was nothing unusual about a Velthari woman and her children coming into her diner in the middle of the night. Tella opened the menu. Her hands were shaking. The cheapest thing on the menu was a bowl of white rice. It cost $3. The next cheapest thing was a bowl of soup. It cost $4. Everything else cost more. Tella had 50 cents. She stared at the menu. The words blurred as tears filled her eyes. She blinked them away quickly before her daughters could see. "Mama, look!" Nira was pointing at a picture in the menu. "What is that?" It was a picture of a dish called kimchi jjigae, a red soup with vegetables and meat and tofu. It looked delicious. It cost $6. "It's a kind of soup," Tella said. Her voice sounded strange in her own ears. "A human food." "Can we have it?" Sola asked. Her antennae were drooping low, a sign that she was very tired and very hungry. "Please, Mama." Tella did not know what to say. She could not tell her daughters that they had no money. She could not watch them cry again. She had watched them cry so many times in the past year. She had promised them that things would get better, but things were not getting better. Things were getting worse. She was still trying to think of what to say when the bell above the door rang. Someone new was coming into the diner. Tella looked up. A man walked in. He was human, maybe 40 years old, with short black hair and a tired face. He walked with a small limp, like one of his legs did not work quite right. He wore a plain jacket, but on the shoulder of the jacket there was a patch. The patch showed a symbol that Tella recognized. It was the symbol of the Terran military, the humans who had fought in the Dominion War. This man was a soldier, or he had been a soldier once. He did not look at Tella. He did not look at anyone. He just walked to a booth on the other side of the diner, near the window, and sat down alone. Tella watched him for a moment. Then she looked back at her menu, at the prices she could not pay, at the food she could not buy. She did not know it yet, but her life was about to change. Park Tai-ho had come to this diner every Thursday for 3 years. He always sat in the same booth. He always ordered the same food. He always came alone. The booth was near the window. From there, he could see the door. He could see who came in and who went out. He could see the street outside. Old habits from the war. A soldier always watched the door. Tai-ho was 42 years old. He had short black hair that was starting to turn gray at the sides. He had a scar on his left hand from a piece of metal that had cut him during an explosion. He walked with a limp because his right leg had been badly hurt in battle and had never healed completely. He had been a sergeant in the 7th Terran Infantry Division. He had fought in the Dominion War for 4 years. He had been at the Battle of Chiron's Gate, where 3,000 human soldiers had held a mountain pass against 10,000 Dominion troops. He had been at the liberation of Velthar Prime, when the humans finally pushed the Dominion back and freed the occupied worlds. He had seen things that no person should see. He had done things that still woke him up at night. He had watched his friends die. He had held them in his arms as they took their last breaths. Now the war was over, but Tai-ho did not feel like it was over. The war lived inside him. It lived in his dreams. It lived in the way he always sat facing the door. It lived in the way he could not be in crowds without feeling like he could not breathe. He came to Grandma Bora's diner because it was quiet, because the old woman never asked him questions he did not want to answer, because she made kimchi jjigae that tasted like his mother's cooking, and when he ate it, he could remember what it felt like to be home. Tonight he came in and sat down in his usual spot. Grandma Bora brought him tea without being asked. She knew what he liked. "The usual?" she asked. "Yes, Grandma." She nodded and walked back toward the kitchen. Tai-ho looked around the diner. It was a normal Thursday night. A few regular customers, a young couple in the corner, an old man reading a newspaper at the counter. And then there was the woman with the 2 children. Tai-ho had noticed them when he walked in. He had noticed the way the woman held her daughter's hands. He had noticed the way she looked around the diner, like she was afraid of something. He had noticed the purple skin and the antenna. Velthari. He knew that species well. During the war, Tai-ho had spent 8 months on Velthar Prime. He had worked with Velthari resistance fighters. He had helped them take back their cities. He had learned their language, their customs, their body language. He knew what it looked like when a Velthari was scared. He knew what it looked like when a Velthari was hungry. And this woman and her children were both. The mother sat in a booth in the corner. She had a menu in her hands, but she was not really reading it. She was staring at it with the kind of look that Taeho recognized. It was the look of someone doing math in their head, the math of poverty, the math of figuring out what you could not afford. The children were looking at the pictures in the menu. They were pointing at dishes and asking their mother questions. Their antennae were drooping, which meant they were tired and hungry. Velthari children could not hide their feelings the way adults could. Their antennae showed everything. Taiho watched them for a minute. He saw the mother's face change when her daughters asked about the food. He saw the way she tried to smile, tried to stay calm, even though something inside her was breaking. He had seen that look before, many times, on many worlds, in many wars. Grandma Bora brought his soup. The smell of it filled his nose. Hot and spicy and perfect. But Taiho did not pick up his spoon. He was still watching the family in the corner. "Grandma," he said quietly, "that woman over there, the Velthari with the two girls, what did she order?" Grandma Bora looked over at the corner booth. "Nothing yet. She's been looking at the menu for a long time." "How long?" "Maybe 10 minutes. Taeho nodded. 10 minutes was too long. If someone looked at a menu for 10 minutes without ordering, it usually meant one thing. They did not have money. He thought about the woman. He thought about her children. He thought about what it must be like to be far from home, alone, hungry, with no money and no help. He thought about a night many years ago, when he had been young and lost and far from home. He had been a new soldier, just finished with training, stationed on a strange world where he knew no one. He had been lonely. He had been scared. He had not eaten in 2 days because he had sent all his money home to his mother. An old man at a noodle shop had seen him standing outside looking through the window. The old man had come out and brought Taiho inside. He had fed him a hot meal. He had not asked for anything in return. He had just said, "Everyone needs help sometimes. Today I help you. Tomorrow you help someone else." Taiho had never forgotten that. "Put her bill on my tab," he said to Grandma Bora. The old woman raised her eyebrows. "You don't know what she's going to order." "It doesn't matter." Taiho looked at his soup. "Whatever she wants, whatever the children want, as much as they want." Grandma Bora was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled just a little. "You're a good man, Taiho." "No," he said. "I'm just a man who remembers." Grandma Bora walked away. Taiho watched her go to the corner booth. He watched her say something to the Velthari woman. He watched the woman's face change from confusion to surprise to something else, something like hope. The woman looked across the diner at him. Their eyes met for just a moment. Taiho looked away. He did not want thanks. He did not want attention. He just wanted to eat his soup in peace, and he wanted those children to have a hot meal. He picked up his spoon and started to eat. Across the diner, he could hear the children laughing. He could hear them ordering food, excited voices talking about soup and rice and meat and something sweet for dessert. He could hear the mother trying to tell them not to order too much, and Grandma Bora telling her that it was fine, that she should let the children eat. Taiho smiled into his soup. This was why he had survived the war. Not for medals, not for glory, for moments like this. For the chance to make something better. Even if it was just one small thing. Even if no one would ever know. He finished his soup slowly. He left money on the table, more than enough to cover his meal and a good tip for Grandma Bora. Then he stood up and walked toward the door. He was almost there when he heard a voice behind him. "Wait!" He stopped. The Velthari woman was walking toward him. Her daughters were still in the booth, eating. But the mother had gotten up. She came to stand in front of him. Up close, he could see how thin she was. He could see the dark circles under her eyes. He could see that she had been through hard times. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was shaking. "I don't know how to repay you." Taiho looked at her. He thought about what to say. He thought about all the things he could not say, all the things that were too big for words. Finally, he reached into his pocket. He pulled out a small card. "There's a refugee assistance center on the east side of the city," he said. "Ask for a woman named Imhana. Tell her Taiho sent you. She'll help you find a place to stay. She'll help you find work. She'll help you get your daughters into school." The woman took the card. Her hands were trembling. "Why?" she asked. Why are you doing this? You don't know me. Taiho was quiet for a moment. Then he said, because someone did it for me once, a long time ago. He looked at the children in the booth. They were eating happily, their antennas standing tall again. Take care of your daughters. They have good eyes. The galaxy needs more good eyes. Then he turned and walked out into the cold night. Behind him, in the warm diner, a mother held a small card in her hands and cried tears that she did not try to hide. Tella walked back to her booth. Her legs felt weak. Her hands were still shaking. She sat down across from her daughters and looked at the card the man had given her. It was a simple card, white with black letters. It said Refugee Assistance Center and had an address and a phone number. Mama? Nira was looking at her with worried eyes. Are you okay? Why are you crying? Tella touched her face. She had not realized she was crying. She wiped her eyes quickly and tried to smile. I'm fine, little one. I'm just happy. Happy crying? Sola asked. She had sauce on her chin from the food she was eating. Like when Grandpa used to cry at holidays? Yes, Tella said. Just like that. Happy crying. Grandma Bora appeared at their table. She was carrying more food. A big bowl of rice, a plate of vegetables, something that looked like meat wrapped in leaves. I brought some extra things, the old woman said. Growing children need to eat. And you too, Mother. You look like you haven't had a good meal in a long time. Tella wanted to say no. She wanted to say it was too much. But her stomach was empty and the food smelled so good, and her daughters were already reaching for the new dishes with excited hands. Thank you, she said. Thank you so much. Grandma Bora sat down next to her. The diner was not very busy now, and the other customers did not need her attention. That man, Tella said, looking toward the door where Taiho had gone. Who is he? His name is Park Taiho. He comes here every Thursday, has been coming for 3 years, ever since he came back from the war. The war, Tella repeated. She thought about the patch on his jacket, the military symbol. He was a soldier. He was more than a soldier. He was a hero, though he would never say that himself. Grandma Bora's eyes were soft. He fought at Kieran's Gate. Do you know what that was? Tella shook her head. It was a battle during the Dominion War. The Dominion had surrounded a city where 50,000 refugees were hiding. Velthari refugees like you and your daughters. The only way out was through a mountain pass. The Dominion sent 10,000 soldiers to block that pass. Grandma Bora paused. She looked out the window at the dark street. 3,000 human soldiers held that pass for 6 days. They let the refugees escape. Most of those soldiers died. Taiho was one of the few who survived. Tella felt something cold move through her chest. She looked at her daughters, Velthari children, refugee children, like the 50,000 that Taiho and his fellow soldiers had saved. He saved my people, she said quietly. He saved a lot of people, but it cost him. War always costs. Grandma Bora turned back to look at Tella. He doesn't talk about it. He just comes here every Thursday, eats his soup, and goes home. But sometimes he sees someone who needs help, and when he sees that, he helps. It's just who he is. Tella looked at the card in her hand again. A refugee assistance center. A woman named Imhana. A chance to start over. I should eat, she said, before the food gets cold. Yes, you should. Grandma Bora smiled and stood up. Eat everything. If your daughters want more, just tell me. Tonight, you are my guests. For the next hour, Tella and her daughters ate. They ate rice and soup and vegetables. They ate meat and tofu and something called kimchi that was spicy and sour and strange but also delicious. They drank hot tea that warmed them from the inside. Nira and Sola ate until their bellies were round. Their antennas stood straight up, which meant they were happy and full. They laughed at the strange human dessert that Grandma Bora brought them, a soft, sweet thing that melted on their tongues. Tella ate too, but slowly. Every bite felt like a gift. She had not eaten this well since before the war, since before everything fell apart. When they were finally finished, Tella felt different. Not just full, but something else. Something she had not felt in a long time. Hope. Maybe things could get better. Maybe this human world could become home. Maybe her daughters could grow up safe and happy. Maybe the worst was over. Mama, Sola said, yawning. I'm tired. Me too, Nira agreed. Her eyes were half closed. Tella looked at her daughters. They were clean and fed and warm. For the first time in months, they looked like children again, not like tiny survivors. Let's go home, she said. Then she stopped. They did not have a home. They had a place in a refugee shelter, a small corner with thin blankets and no privacy. It was not a home, but maybe with the card in her pocket, that could change. She stood up and helped her daughters put on their thin jackets. They were not good jackets for cold weather, but they were all Tella had. Grandma Bora met them at the door. Wait, the old woman said. She disappeared into the back of the diner. When she came back, she was carrying a bag. Leftovers, she said, giving the bag to Tella. For tomorrow, and the next day. The bag was heavy. There was a lot of food inside. I can't, Tella started to say. You can and you will. Grandma Bora's voice was firm but kind. You have children to feed. That is the most important job in the world. Let me help you do it. Tella did not know what to say. In her culture, accepting help from strangers was shameful. It meant you were weak. It meant you could not take care of your own family. But she was not in her culture anymore. She was on a human world, and humans did things differently. They helped strangers. They fed people they did not know. They held mountain passes so refugees could escape. Maybe accepting help was not weakness. Maybe it was something else. Maybe it was trust. Thank you, Tella said. For everything, I will never forget this. Grandma Bora reached out and touched Tella's face. Her old hands were warm. Come back anytime, she said. This diner is for everyone. That includes you. Tella nodded. She could not speak anymore. If she tried to speak, she would cry again, and she had cried enough for one night. She took her daughter's hands and walked out into the cold. The wind was still blowing, but it did not feel as cold as before. The street was dark, but Tella could see light in some of the windows. People living their lives, families having dinner, children getting ready for bed. Someday, she thought, someday we will have a window with light in it. Someday we will be one of those families. She held her daughter's hands tighter and started walking. Tomorrow she would go to the Refugee Assistance Center. Tomorrow she would find the woman named Imhana. Tomorrow she would start building a new life. But tonight she was full and her children were safe, and somewhere in this city, a man named Park Taiho was going home. Not knowing that he had changed everything, that was enough. For tonight, that was enough. The Refugee Assistance Center was in an old building on the east side of the city. The building was not beautiful. The paint was old and the windows were dirty, but inside it was warm, and there were people who wanted to help. Tella found it the next morning. She walked for an hour through streets she did not know, holding her daughter's hands, asking for directions from strangers. Some strangers were kind. Some looked at her with cold eyes and walked away. But she kept going until she found the building with the sign that matched the card. Inside there was a desk, and behind the desk sat a woman. She was small and thin, with hair that was gray and black mixed together. She wore glasses and had a pen behind her ear. She looked very busy, but when she saw Tella and the children, she stopped what she was doing. Can I help you? She asked. I'm looking for Imhana, Tella said. A man named Taiho sent me. Something changed in the woman's face. Her eyes became softer. Her shoulders relaxed. I'm Hana, she said. Taiho sent you? Come in, please. Sit down. She led them to a small room with chairs and a table. There were pictures on the walls, drawings made by children. There was a plant in the corner that looked healthy and green. The room felt safe. Hana asked Tella many questions. Where did she come from? How did she get to New Busan? Did she have any family here? Did she have any money? Did she have any skills? Tella answered all the questions. She told Hana about Velthar Prime and the war. She told her about her husband who had died. She told her about the months of running and hiding. She told her about the 50 cents in the diner and the man who had paid for their food. When she was finished, Hana was quiet for a moment. Then she said, You've been through a lot, but you're here now, and we're going to help you. Over the next 2 weeks, Hana helped Tella in ways she had not imagined possible. First, she found them a place to live. It was a small apartment in a building where many refugees lived. 2 rooms, a tiny kitchen, a bathroom they shared with the apartment next door. The walls were thin and the floor was cold, but it had a door that locked and windows that let in light. When Tella walked into the apartment for the first time, she started to cry. It was not beautiful, it was not big, but it was theirs. "Mama, look!" Sola ran to the window. "I can see the street. I can see people walking. And there's a kitchen." Nira opened the cabinets, which were empty. "We can cook food here." Tella looked around the apartment. 2 rooms, a place to sleep, a place to live. After months of shelters and cargo ships and corners in strange buildings, this felt like a palace. "Thank you," she said to Hana. "I don't know how to thank you enough." "You don't have to thank me," Hana said. "Just take care of your daughters. Build a good life. That's all the thanks I need." Next, Hana helped Tella find work. There was a textile factory on the south side of the city. They needed workers who could sew and make clothes. Tella had made clothes back on Velthar Prime. She had been good at it. She went to the factory and talked to the manager. He was a big human man with a loud voice, but he was not unkind. He looked at some samples of her work and nodded. "You're hired," he said. "Start tomorrow, 6 in the morning. Don't be late." The work was hard. Tella worked 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. Her fingers hurt from the sewing. Her back hurt from sitting in the same position. The pay was not much, but it was enough. Enough to pay rent, enough to buy food, enough to put a little money aside every week for the future. Finally, Hana helped Nira and Sola start school. The school was a big building with many classrooms. Human children went there, but also children from other species. Rillian children with blue skin, Torvian children with 4 arms, and now 2 Velthari children with violet skin and antenna. On the first day, Tella walked her daughters to the front door of the school. Nira and Sola held each other's hands. They looked scared. "What if they don't like us?" Nira asked. "What if they make fun of our antenna?" Sola added. Tella knelt down so she could look at them eye to eye. "Listen to me," she said. "You are smart and kind and brave. Anyone who meets you is lucky to know you. And if someone doesn't like you, that's their problem, not yours." The girls looked at each other. Then they looked at their mother. "Okay, Mama," Nira said. "We'll try." "We'll be brave," Sola agreed. They walked into the school together, still holding hands. Tella watched them go. Her heart felt like it was being squeezed inside her chest. She wanted to go with them. She wanted to protect them from everything bad in the universe. But she could not do that. All she could do was give them the tools to protect themselves. That evening, when Tella came home from work, the girls were waiting for her. Their faces were bright and excited. "Mama, Mama!" They both talked at once, their voices mixing together. "One at a time," Tella said, laughing. "One at a time." "There's a girl named Kang Yuna," Nira said. "She's human. She shared her snacks with us at lunch." "And there's a boy named Vex," Sola added. "He's Rillian. He said our antenna are really cool. He wishes he had antenna." Tella felt tears in her eyes again. Happy tears. Relief tears. Her daughters were making friends. They were going to be okay. That night, Tella cooked dinner in their tiny kitchen. It was simple food, just rice and vegetables. But it was hot and it was made with love. They sat on the floor together because they did not have a table yet. They ate and talked and laughed. After the girls went to sleep, Tella sat by the window and looked out at the city. New Busan spread out before her, lights in 1,000 windows, lives being lived everywhere. She thought about Taiho. She thought about what he had done. A meal, a card, a few words, such small things. But they had changed everything. She wanted to thank him. Someday she would find a way to thank him. She did not know yet what that would look like, but she would figure it out. She took out the card he had given her. She had kept it, even though she did not need it anymore. She looked at it for a long time. Then she put it away carefully, like something precious. She would find a way. Outside the window, the city lights sparkled like stars. Somewhere out there, a man named Taiho was probably eating alone, not knowing that he had saved a family, not knowing that because of him, 2 little girls would grow up with a chance at a good life. Tella made a promise to herself. She would not forget, and someday, somehow, she would pay it forward. That was the human way. That was what Taiho had taught her. Someone helps you, then you help someone else, and the kindness keeps going, on and on, forever. 6 months passed. The seasons changed. Winter became spring. Spring became summer. Tella's life was different now. Better. Not perfect, but better. She still worked at the textile factory. The work was still hard and the hours were still long. But she had learned the job well, and the manager had given her a small raise. Now she made enough money to buy a table for the kitchen. She made enough money to buy warm jackets for the girls. She made enough money to put a little more aside every week. The apartment had become a home. There were pictures on the walls now, drawings that Nira and Sola had made at school. There was a rug on the floor, old but colorful, bought from a second-hand shop. There were plants on the windowsill because Sola loved plants and wanted to watch them grow. The girls were doing well in school. Nira had discovered that she loved numbers. She could do math problems that made Tella's head hurt. Her teacher said she was very smart, that she could become an engineer someday if she worked hard. Sola had discovered music. Human music was different from Velthari music, but she loved it anyway. She sang songs she learned at school. She tapped rhythms on the table with her fingers. She begged Tella to buy her a musical instrument, and Tella was saving money for it, slowly, a little bit at a time. They had friends now. Kang Yuna came over to play almost every week. Her mother, a kind woman named Kang Minji, sometimes brought food for them. The Rillian boy, Vex, lived in the same building, and he and the twins played together in the hallway after school. Life was good. Not easy, but good. But through all of this, Tella never forgot about Tejo. She never forgot about the diner and the meal and the card that had changed everything. Every Thursday evening, after the girls were fed and doing their homework, Tella went to Grandma Bora's diner. She did not go to ask for anything. She went to sit, to drink tea, to watch. Sometimes Taiho was there. He would come in at the same time, sit in the same booth, order the same food. He never looked around. He never talked to anyone except Grandma Bora. He just ate his soup and left. When he was there, Tella would nod at him from across the room. A small nod, nothing more. He would nod back. They never spoke. They never had to. It was enough to see that he was okay. It was enough to remember. Sometimes Taiho was not there. Tella would wait, watching the door, but he would not come. On those nights, she worried. Was he sick? Was he hurt? Was he sitting alone in his apartment, struggling with memories from the war? She asked Grandma Bora about him once. The old woman was wiping down the counter, and the diner was almost empty. Tejo, Tella said. He wasn't here last week, or the week before. Grandma Bora sighed. He has bad times. Times when he doesn't want to leave his home. Times when the memories are too heavy. The war. The war. The things he saw. The friends he lost. Grandma Bora put down her cloth. He never talks about it, but I can see it in his eyes. He carries a weight that never gets lighter. Tella thought about this. She thought about her own memories. The war. Her husband. The running and the hiding and the fear. She carried weight too. Everyone who had lived through bad times carried weight. He helped us, Tella said. He didn't have to, but he did. That's who he is. Helping others is how he keeps going. It's how he finds meaning. Grandma Bora looked at Tella with wise old eyes. You come here every Thursday now. Why? Tella was not sure how to answer. She thought for a moment. Because I want to see that he's okay, she finally said. And because this place, this diner, it was the first place on this world where someone was kind to us. It feels like home. Grandma Bora smiled. Then you should keep coming. And if you want to help in the kitchen when things get busy, I wouldn't say no. So Tella started helping. Not every week, but sometimes. She would tie an apron around her waist and wash dishes. She would cut vegetables. She would learn how to make kimchi, the spicy fermented vegetables that humans loved. Grandma Bora taught her patiently, showing her how to mix the ingredients and how to wait for the flavors to develop. It's not so different from Velthari food, Tella said one night, as she packed kimchi into jars. We ferment things too. My grandmother used to make something similar. Food is the same everywhere, Grandma Bora said. Different ingredients, different names, but the same love. The diner became Tella's second home. She knew the regular customers now. She knew their names and their orders and their stories. The young couple who came every Saturday night. the old man who read the newspaper every morning, the factory workers who came for lunch, and she knew Taiho, even though they never talked. She knew that he liked his soup very hot. She knew that he always left a big tip. She knew that sometimes, when he thought no one was looking, he would stare out the window with eyes that were far away, seeing things that no one else could see. One Thursday, Taiho was not there. The next Thursday, he was not there again. "He's been sick," Grandma Bora told Tella. "A bad cold, nothing serious, but he doesn't take care of himself." Tella thought about this all the way home. She thought about it while helping the girls with their homework. She thought about it while lying in bed unable to sleep. Taiho had helped her when she needed it most. He had not waited for her to ask. He had just seen someone who was struggling, and he had done something about it. Now he was alone and sick. Tella got out of bed. She went to the kitchen. She started to cook. It was late, and she was tired. But she made soup anyway. A Velthari recipe, but with some things that Grandma Bora had taught her. Hot and warming and good for someone who was sick. When the soup was finished, she put it in a container and put the container in a bag. Tomorrow she would find Taiho's apartment. Tomorrow she would bring him soup. It was a small thing. It was not equal to what he had done for her. But it was something. It was a start. She remembered what Taiho had said that night in the diner. "Someone did it for me once, a long time ago." That was how it worked. Someone helps you, then you help someone else. The kindness keeps moving, passing from person to person, crossing species and worlds and years. Tella was part of that chain now. She was not just someone who received help. She was someone who could give it too. She went back to bed. She slept well, and in the morning she made more soup, just to be sure there was enough. Finding Taiho's apartment was not difficult. Hana had mentioned the address once, many months ago, when Tella had asked about him. Tella had remembered it, though she did not know why at the time. Now she stood outside his building. It was an old building, 5 floors tall, made of gray concrete. Nothing special, nothing fancy, just a place where people lived. Tella held the container of soup in her hands. The soup was still warm. She had wrapped the container in cloth to keep the heat inside. She looked at the building for a long time. She felt nervous. This was strange. They had never really talked. They had only nodded at each other across a diner. What if he did not want to see her? What if he thought she was being too forward? She almost turned around and left. But then she thought about her daughters. She thought about their faces when Grandma Bora had brought them food that night. She thought about what it felt like to be alone and struggling, and then to have someone help without being asked. Taiho had done that for her. He had not worried about whether it was strange. He had just helped. She walked into the building and climbed the stairs. His apartment was on the 3rd floor. Number 307. She stood outside the door for a moment. Then she knocked. There was no answer. She knocked again, louder this time. She heard footsteps inside, slow and shuffling. Then the door opened. Taiho looked terrible. His face was pale. His eyes were red. He was wrapped in a blanket, and he looked like he had not slept in days. His hair was messy and he had not shaved. When he saw her, his eyes widened. "You!" he said. His voice was rough and weak. "Me," Tella said. She held up the container. "I heard you were sick. I made soup, Velthari recipe, but I added some things Grandma Bora taught me. I thought it might help." Taiho stared at her. He stared at the soup. He did not say anything for what felt like a very long time. Tella started to feel foolish. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe she should not have come. "I'm sorry," she said. "I should not have just shown up. I can leave the soup and go. I just wanted to—" "Come in," Taiho said. He stepped aside and held the door open. Tella walked into the apartment. It was small, smaller than her own apartment, one main room that served as bedroom and living room together, a tiny kitchen in the corner, a bathroom behind a closed door. That was all. But the apartment was clean, very clean. Everything was in its place. The bed was made with military precision. The books on the shelf were arranged by size. There was no dust anywhere. On the wall there was a photograph. Tella looked at it. It showed a group of young soldiers, maybe 20 of them, standing together with their arms around each other. They were smiling. Taiho was one of them, younger and without the weight in his eyes that he carried now. My squad, Taiho said. He had seen her looking. From the war. They look happy, Tella said. We were. Sometimes. He sat down heavily in a chair. The blanket was still wrapped around his shoulders. That was before Chiron's gate, before most of them died. Tella did not know what to say. She went to the tiny kitchen and found a pot. She poured the soup into the pot and turned on the stove to heat it. You don't have to do that, Taiho said. I know. I want to. She found a bowl and a spoon. When the soup was hot, she poured it into the bowl and brought it to him. Taiho took the bowl. He looked at it for a moment. Steam rose from the soup, warming his face. It's been a long time, he said quietly, since someone made me soup. Then it's been too long. He ate slowly. Tella sat across from him in another chair and waited. She did not talk. She did not ask questions. She just sat with him, comfortable in the silence. When he finished the soup, some color had returned to his face. He looked a little better. Not healthy, but better. Thank you, he said. The words seemed hard for him to say. Thank you, Tella replied, for everything you did for us. For the meal, for the card, for giving us a chance. My daughters are doing well because of you. We have a home because of you. Taiho was quiet. He looked at the empty bowl in his hands. I didn't do much, he finally said. Just paid for a meal. It was more than that. It was hope. When we had nothing, you gave us hope. Taiho looked up at her. His eyes were wet, not crying, but close. I don't know how to do this, he said. How to let people help me. I'm supposed to be the one who helps. That's my job. That's the only thing I'm good at. Maybe it doesn't work like that, Tella said gently. Maybe help goes both ways. You help me, I help you. We help each other. Taiho was silent for a long time. Then slowly he nodded. Tell me about them, he said. Your daughters. How are they doing? Tella smiled. Nero wants to be an engineer. She's so good at math. Her teacher says she's the best in the class. And Sola wants to be a musician. She sings all the time, even when she doesn't realize she's doing it. That's good. A small smile appeared on Taiho's face. That's really good. They talk about Earth sometimes. They want to see the ocean. They've never seen an ocean before. I grew up near the ocean, Taiho said, in a town called Pohang. It's on the east coast of Korea, on Earth. The water is very blue there, very clean. I used to swim every summer when I was a boy. Tell me about it, Tella said. And so he did. He talked about Pohang and the ocean and the summers of his childhood. He talked about his mother, who had made the best kimchi jjigae in the whole town. He talked about his father, who had been a fisherman. He talked about things he had not talked about in years. Tella listened. She asked questions. She laughed at his stories and felt sad at his memories. Outside the window, the sun moved across the sky. Hours passed without either of them noticing. When Tella finally looked at the time, she was surprised. I have to go, she said. My daughters will be home from school soon. Taiho nodded. He walked her to the door. Will you come back? He asked. His voice was uncertain. If you want to, you don't have to. Tella looked at him. This man who had survived wars. This man who had saved lives. This man who did not know how to let people care about him. I'll come back, she said. Maybe next Thursday. Maybe with more soup. Taiho smiled. A real smile, not a polite one. I'd like that. Tella walked out into the afternoon light. She felt good. Different. Like something had changed even though she was not sure what. Behind her, in a small apartment on the third floor, a man stood at his window and watched her go. And for the first time in a long time, he did not feel quite so alone. 3 years passed like water flowing in a river, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, but always moving forward. Tella stood near the back of Grandma Bora's diner. The place was full of people. Every table was taken. Every booth was crowded. Voices filled the air, talking and laughing and mixing together into something warm and alive. It was Grandma Bora's 80th birthday, and everyone who mattered had come to celebrate. Hana was there with her husband, a quiet man named Jun, and their 2 children. Kang Minji was there, the mother of Yuna, who had befriended the twins on their first day of school. Yuna herself was there, no longer a little girl, but a teenager now, tall and awkward and still kind. Refugees who had passed through the diner over the years were there. People Grandma Bora had fed and helped and loved. They had come from all over the city to be here tonight, and there, at a table near the center of the room, sat Nira and Sola. Tella looked at her daughters and felt something expand in her chest. Love, pride, wonder. Nira was 12 now. She had grown tall, and her antenna had developed the graceful curve that Velthari got when they entered adolescence. She was still quiet, still thoughtful, still the best at math in her class. Her teachers said she could go to university. They said she could become an engineer, build ships that flew between the stars. Sola was 12 too, of course. They were twins, but she was different from her sister. Louder, more dramatic, full of music and joy. She had learned to play the guitar, a human instrument that she loved. Sometimes she played at small shows in the city. People said she was talented. People said she had a gift. They had grown up on New Busan. This was their home now. They spoke Korean almost as well as they spoke Velthari. They had human friends and Rillian friends and Torvian friends. They were children of two worlds, and they carried both inside them. Tella watched them helping Grandma Bora with the cake. The old woman was directing them, pointing at candles, telling them where to put things. The girls were laughing at something she said. "She looks happy," a voice said beside Tella. She turned. Taiho was standing there, looking at the same thing she was looking at. His hair was more gray now than black. The lines on his face were deeper, but the weight in his eyes was lighter than it used to be. "She does," Tella agreed. "Thank you for coming. I wouldn't miss it." 3 years had changed things between them, changed them slowly, carefully, the way rivers change the land. It was not something Tella could describe easily. They were not married. They were not lovers, not in the traditional sense, but they were something. They ate dinner together most weeks. Taiho helped the girls with their homework sometimes. He had taught Nira how to fix things, how to use tools, how to think like an engineer. He had taken Sola to music shows in the city, introducing her to songs and sounds she had never heard before. And Tella took care of him. She made sure he ate properly. She made sure he talked about the things that hurt him, even when talking was hard. She made sure he knew that he was not alone. Humans had a word for what they were. Family. Not the family you were born into, but the family you chose. The family you built one meal at a time, one kindness at a time. "Uncle Taiho!" Sola came running over, a plate of cake in her hands. "You have to try this. Grandma Bora made it with that frosting you like." Taiho took the plate with a serious expression. "This is very important." "It is," Sola nodded. "I told her you would eat at least 2 pieces." "Then I must eat 3. I can't disappoint Grandma Bora." Sola laughed and ran back to the cake table. Nira came over next. She was more reserved than her sister, but her eyes were warm. "Mom, Grandma Bora wants to take a picture of everyone. Can you come?" Tella looked at Taiho. He offered his arm, an old-fashioned gesture that he had started doing sometime in the past year. "Shall we?" They walked to the front of the diner together. Grandma Bora was arranging everyone for the photograph. She moved people around like pieces on a game board, putting tall ones in back and short ones in front. "Tella, Taiho, over here beside me. Girls in front, everyone squeeze in." They squeezed in. Tella felt Taiho's shoulder against hers. She felt her daughters in front of her. She felt Grandma Bora's hand taking hers. The camera flashed. Later, Tella would look at that photograph often. She would keep a copy in her apartment, on the wall above the kitchen table. She would look at it when she was tired. She would look at it when she missed her old world, her old life, her husband who had died in the war. The photograph showed all of them together, humans and Velthari and Rillians and Torvians, young and old, people who had been strangers and had become family. Grandma Bora stood in the center, her face full of joy. She was 80 years old and she had spent her life feeding people. Not just food, but hope. Not just meals, but love. The twins stood in front, their antenna bright with happiness. They were children of this world now. They belonged here. And at the edge of the photograph, Tella and Taiho stood together, close but not touching, connected in ways that did not need touch. 2 people who had found each other in the aftermath of war. 2 people who had chosen to keep going, to keep living, to keep building something good. The party continued late into the night. There was more food, more cake, more talking and laughing. Hana made a speech about Grandma Bora. Some of the children played music. Some of the adults danced. Near midnight, Tella stepped outside for some air. The night was cool and the stars were bright. She could see the mountains in the distance, dark shapes against a darker sky. Taiho came out and stood beside her. "Good night," he said. "Yes," she agreed. "A very good night." They stood in silence for a while. Comfortable silence. The kind of silence that does not need to be filled. "I've been thinking," Taiho said, "about what you said a long time ago, about help going both ways." "What about it?" "I think I finally understand." He looked up at the stars. "I thought I was the helper. I thought that was my role. But you helped me too. You and the girls. You saved me just as much as I saved you." Tella reached over and took his hand. His skin was warm. His fingers wrapped around hers. "That's how it works," she said. "We save each other. We carry each other. That's what makes us family." Inside the diner, Sola started playing her guitar. A soft song, something gentle and sweet. Through the window, Tella could see Nira sitting next to Grandma Bora, the two of them talking quietly. This was her life now. This world, these people, this strange, beautiful family that had grown from a single act of kindness. 50 cents. That was all she had that night, 3 years ago. 50 cents and 2 hungry children, and no hope at all. And then a man walked into a diner and paid for a meal. Such a small thing. Such an ordinary thing. But it had changed everything. That was what humans did, Tella had learned. They helped each other. They built things together. They created families out of strangers and homes out of nothing. It was why they had spread across the stars. Not because they were the strongest or the fastest or the smartest, but because they took care of each other. Because they refused to let anyone be alone. Tella squeezed Taiho's hand. He squeezed back. Behind them, the diner was full of light and warmth and love. Ahead of them, the stars stretched out forever. And somewhere in the middle, between the light and the stars, a family stood together. Not the family they had been born into, the family they had chosen, the family they had built together.